Negative dialectics represents one of Theodore W. Adorno's most significant philosophical contributions, marking a profound critique of traditional dialectical thought and offering an innovative approach to philosophy that emphasizes tension, non-identity, and the limits of conceptual thought. Rooted in the Frankfurt School's critical theory, this work challenges the adequacy of systematic philosophy to capture the complexity of reality, particularly in the aftermath of historical tragedies such as the Holocaust. Adorno's text is difficult and aphoristic, reflecting his belief that conventional philosophical clarity often masks the contradictions inherent in social and historical life. One, the central problem, identity thinking. Adorno's primary concern in negative dialectics is the prevalence of what he calls identity thinking, Identitätsdenken. Traditional philosophy, from Hegel onward, tends to subsume particular phenomena under universal concepts. In other words, it attempts to fit the richness of empirical reality into pre-established categories, creating a synthesis that often erases difference. Adorno argues that this tendency is philosophically and ethically dangerous because it ignores the non-identical, the aspects of reality that resist conceptual assimilation. For Adorno, reality is composed of both identifiable and non-identical elements. Identity thinking reduces these non-identical elements to the identical, resulting in conceptual violence. In the social and historical realm, such reduction can justify oppression, domination, and the silencing of difference. In essence, the standard philosophical approach abstracts from concrete reality in ways that can have real-world consequences. 2. Negative dialectics as method. Adorno proposes negative dialectics as an alternative. Unlike Hegelian dialectics, which seeks to resolve contradictions into a higher synthesis, negative dialectics embraces tension and contradiction. Its goal is not to achieve reconciliation of opposites, but to remain attuned to the non-identical and to the dissonances of experience. In practical terms, negative dialectics involves a constant critical movement. It exposes the limits of concepts while using them provisionally to engage with reality. It resists closure, emphasizing the no inherent in thought. By refusing to force reality into conceptual molds, negative dialectics keeps philosophy responsive to the complexity and suffering of the world. Adorno often illustrates this method with social and historical examples. For instance, he reflects on the atrocities of the Holocaust, noting that conventional philosophical abstractions cannot adequately account for such historical horror. The events resist conceptual capture. Attempting to reconcile them within a systematic philosophy risks trivializing or rationalizing them. In this sense, negative dialectics has an ethical dimension. It calls for a philosophy that acknowledges suffering without subsuming it into abstract ideals. 3. Non-identity and the critique of conceptual totality. A central term in Adorno's work is non-identity, nicht identisches. Non-identity refers to the aspects of reality that cannot be fully expressed or captured by concepts. Every concept necessarily involves simplification, yet reality exceeds this simplification. Philosophy, therefore, must recognize its own limitations. Concepts are tools for thought, not mirrors of the world. This recognition underpins Adorno's critique of systematic philosophy. Systems, by attempting to unify everything under a coherent logic, risk erasing difference and suppressing contradiction. For Adorno, the philosophical task is not to construct a totalizing system, but to maintain an openness to what resists conceptual closure. Adorno's approach is explicitly critical of positivism, empiricism, and other approaches that assume that reality can be fully captured by facts or categories. While empirical data can inform thought, it cannot eliminate the non-identical. Negative dialectics thus insists on a tension between thought and reality, where concepts must be constantly tested against what exceeds them. 4. The role of contradiction. Contradiction plays a crucial role in negative dialectics. For Adorno, contradictions are not failures of thought to unify reality. Rather, they reveal the complexity and historical contingency of social life. Philosophy should bring these contradictions to light instead of attempting to resolve them artificially. In this respect, negative dialectics is both epistemological and ethical. Epistemologically, it demands careful attention to the ways concepts fail to capture reality. Ethically, it respects the autonomy of individuals and events by refusing to subordinate them to overarching reductive frameworks. For example, social injustices, human suffering, and historical catastrophes resist being neatly folded into abstract philosophical or political theories. Negative dialectics insists on the dignity of the non-identical, even if it cannot be fully comprehended. 5. The relation to Hegel and Marx. Adorno's work is deeply influenced by Hegel and Marx, yet it is also a pointed critique of them. Hegelian dialectics sought to reconcile contradictions in a totalizing system, culminating in absolute knowledge. Adorno rejects this teleological orientation, arguing that such systems erase the tragic and resistant aspects of reality. Similarly, while Marxian theory provides a powerful critique of capitalist society, Adorno critiques orthodox Marxism for its tendency to reduce individuals and historical phenomena to class categories or economic determinism. Negative dialectics preserves the critical potential of Marxian thought but remains cautious of theoretical closure. It resists the temptation to claim a final, all-encompassing understanding of society or history. Number 6. Art, aesthetics, and the non-identical Adorno frequently connects his philosophical method to aesthetics. Art, particularly modern art, provides a model for negative dialectics because it expresses what resists conceptualization. A painting, a musical composition, or a poem may confront the non-identical directly, embodying tension, ambiguity, and contradiction. In this sense, aesthetic experience serves as a guide for philosophy. Just as art retains what eludes full representation, philosophy should maintain a critical openness to what cannot be fully conceptualized. This link between aesthetics and negative dialectics underscores the ethical dimension of Adorno's thought, recognizing the non-identical as a form of moral attentiveness to the complexity and singularity of life. 7. Conceptual and ethical implications. The implications of negative dialectics extend beyond theory. Conceptually, it challenges philosophers to rethink the role of concepts and systems in understanding reality. Ethically, it calls for a respect for difference, an acknowledgement of human suffering, and a refusal to reduce social and historical phenomena to abstract principles. Adorno's insistence on non-identity also has political significance. Ideologies, which often attempt to impose rigid categories and reduce complexity, are subject to critique through negative dialectics. By attending to what resists assimilation, philosophy can serve as a form of resistance against authoritarian and totalizing tendencies. 8. Style and structure of the work. Negative dialectics is aphoristic, fragmented, and dense. Adorno deliberately avoids systematic presentation, reflecting his critique of systematic philosophy itself. Readers encounter a series of interconnected reflections rather than a linear argument. This style mirrors the work's content. Reality is complex, resistant, and often contradictory. Philosophy must adopt a method that remains attentive to these qualities, rather than imposing artificial order. 9. Critiques and legacy. Negative dialectics has been influential across philosophy, critical theory, and social sciences. Scholars have praised its rigorous critique of identity thinking and its ethical sensitivity. However, it has also been criticized for its difficult style and its perceived lack of practical guidance. Some argue that negative dialectics risks paralysis by constantly highlighting limitations without offering constructive alternatives. Adorno, however, would likely respond that philosophy's role is not to provide certainty, but to remain critically engaged with the non-identical and the real. In contemporary thought, negative dialectics resonates in discussions of postmodernism, critical theory, and social philosophy. Its emphasis on non-identity, tension, and ethical attentiveness continues to challenge approaches that prioritize totalizing theories or reductionist frameworks. 10. Conclusion. In Negative Dialectics, Adorno offers a profound meditation on the limitations of philosophy and the ethical demands of thought. Rejecting identity thinking and systematic closure, he advocates a philosophy that remains attentive to contradiction, non-identity, and the tragic dimensions of human existence. Negative dialectics is both a methodological innovation and a moral stance. It refuses to simplify reality, instead maintaining a critical openness to what resists conceptual capture. The work is deeply historical, reflecting Adorno's engagement with the catastrophes of the 20th century, yet it also transcends its time, offering a framework for understanding the tension between concepts and the complexity of reality. Philosophy, in Adorno's vision, is never complete or absolute. It is a perpetual confrontation with the non-identical, a form of critical vigilance, and a gesture of ethical responsibility toward the world. Through its rigorous critique of traditional dialectics and its insistence on the irreducibility of experience, negative dialectics remains a landmark in modern philosophy, offering insight into both the possibilities and the limits of human thought.